everyone. Okay, here we are with Harbor Meet, Chapter 26. As we drove home that afternoon, I pulled my braids down over my eyes and thought about Kira's hands in my hair, the way they felt strong and warm and sure, the tiny point of her comb making straight parts between her braids, the smell of the lavender oil she rubbed into my scalp. I had sat there the way I did every time she did with my hair, with my eyes closed and my head tilted down, secretly imagining Kira was my mother. I know that's stupid. Holly was sitting across from us, talking away and eating pretzels with peanut butter. I imagined my mom had put the bowl where it was between us. I imagined she'd say, "You've always loved pretzels and peanut butter, Haley. I remember when you were a baby. You grabbed a spoonful of peanut butter out of my hand and shoved it into your mouth." I was so scared. All those stories I'd heard about peanut butter allergies and how babies shouldn't have it until they were older. I tried to pry your mouth open with my fingers and scoop it out. It was Kira talking. Kira, who had pried Holly's mouth open. Kira's fear. I let out a deep breath and felt my uncle glance over at me. "Tell me about her again," I said, "the little bit you know." "About your mom, right?" my uncle said. I figured that's where you'd gone. I nodded. "I only knew her a short time," he said. "By the time Barry and your dad got really serious, I was already away at college. I hardly ever came home. You know our dad didn't approve, right?" "Yeah," I said, "but he died before I was born, and you and Dad used some of the money he left you to buy our house. Too bad, so sad for him, I guess." "Are you mocking me?" I shook my head. "Nope, just saying what you always say. Your dad wasn't a nice guy, but at least you got to know your mom, even though you were young when she died. I wish I'd known mine." "You would have loved her like crazy, Hales," my uncle said. "And she would have been over the moon about you." She was over the moon about you. How many times had he started the next story the same way? I knew exactly what he'd say next, and in my head I said it with him. "Your parents loved each other like that romantic movie kind of love. Except it was real. They truly, truly loved each other." My mother and father had met when they were both at Brooklyn College. My mother was studying to be a nurse, and my father wanted to be a teacher. They had some kind of advanced science class together. My uncle was still in high school then. He said my dad told him he'd never even imagined the two of them falling in love. It didn't even feel like a possibility. But then it happened, my uncle said. And your dad, when he told me about her, he just said, "She's the most amazing person I've ever met. You're going to love her." He didn't say, "She's the most amazing black person I've ever met." So I was surprised when I first met her. "That's racist," I said. "No, it's just the truth. I was a young knucklehead with a skinny brain, and then I wasn't anymore." "She changed you," I said. "She woke you up." "Both of you woke me up, and keep on waking me up." He tapped my head. The sun was starting to set, and the sky was a bright orange now. Upstate was so different from Brooklyn. There weren't buildings blocking the sky, and the mountains felt like they were just there to let color slip through them and around them, just there to help us see it all. "Your mother would always try to pinch my cheek when I first met her," my uncle was saying. "You're such a cutie," she'd say every time she saw me. Man, I'd get so mad about it. I mean, it wasn't like I was some little kid like you. Hey, yeah, you know what I mean. I was 15. 15's almost a man. Almost, Uncle. Just almost. But not. She was only 5 years older than me. I always loved to see her smiling, and it was so easy to make her laugh. He glanced at me. "When you smile, it reminds me of her." I smiled into the window, trying to imagine my 20-year-old not-yet mother pinching my uncle's cheek. I could see her hands dark with the bright red polish. but her face and hair were blurred. She was tall, I said. Taller than your dad. And someone in her family had red hair too, I said, but not her. Red hair on both sides, my uncle said. You were doomed. I was doomed. My uncle laughed. Behind his glasses, I could see the lines at the edges of his eyes. Crow's feet. That's what he said most people called them. Tiny maps of my life, he'd say. They were beautiful. We drove for a while without talking. We were listening to Joni Mitchell, a singer from way back before my uncle was a kid. She was singing about the color green. She had another song about the color blue, but the green song was one of my favorites. Her voice was sweet and high, but she could make it do crazy things and hold notes for so long, like it made your eyes water. My uncle sang along with her. There'll be icicles and birthday clothes, and sometimes there'll be sorrow. The story is not complicated. Since that time in the hospital, I asked my uncle about it again and again. I was born when my parents were both 26. Then when I was 3, they got into a car accident coming back from a party. My dad was driving, and when they got a block away from my home, my dad accidentally hit the accelerator instead of the brake and mowed into a lamppost before swerving the car and hitting the outside wall of a donut shop. It was nearly morning and the streets were empty, so nobody came when he screamed for help. So he stumbled home to get my uncle to help him get my mom out of the car. She won't move, he kept saying. She won't wake up. My uncle's voice gets quiet when he tells that part of the story. My dad's nose was broken and he had cuts on his hands and arms. My uncle was babysitting me. Before the 3 of us could get back to the car, the cops pulled up beside us and arrested my dad for leaving the scene of a crime and for drunk driving. He kept saying to me, my uncle said, "Go get her. Please go make her wake up." My mother was 6 days away from her 30th birthday. By the time the cops booked my father, my mother had been dead for hours. She will always be 29. Sometimes I say the word slowly to myself. Vehicular homicide. It sounds like a hiccup. Or like the first words of a song. It sounds like the promise of something. And then it doesn't. Tell me again about the day after the accident, I said. I told you your mom and dad both had to go away, my uncle said. I told you I'd keep you safe, though. That you didn't have to worry. And that you'd see your daddy again soon. I told you I loved you and that I'd always take care of you. And I asked you would take care of me all day, and you said, "We're good, Red, I can do it." And that I did. That's what you used to call me before I made you stop. Yep. And I said, "Does that mean I'm white now?" My uncle smiled. "You sure did." And I said, "Nope. You said I'd always be half white and half black. And that until it turned gray, you'd always have red hair. Tell me again how I made you stop calling me Red." You said, "My name is Haley, not Red." And not quietly either, my uncle laughed. I never heard you have so much conviction before that day. I thought about Amari calling me Red and how I didn't mind it so much when he said it. And what do you think about how I said it? I thought, I'm raising a strong, brave girl. I'm doing something right. I leaned across the car and rested my head against his arm. Sometimes I don't feel so brave. Sometimes I just feel scared. I know, he said. That makes 2 of us.